And I guess there was difficulty there with my voice, I've just been told, so I'll run through that all again. Just to say thank you to the New You Network for having us on board on their TV network. You can find more shows like this at www.newyounetwork.com. Now, on today's show, we're going to be looking at part 4 of the mechanics of mediumship. I'll get a little bit more into that very soon, but we're also going to be looking at remote viewing. I had the great pleasure of having a good old conversation with my dear friend Richard Hopf, a great remote viewer, not too long ago, and we spoke about many things, but I've taken the file and cut it and just focused a bit of the attention on remote viewing. For those of you who don't know what remote viewing is, it's a technique that's used by actually the CIA, military, and all other intelligence agencies to find and locate aircrafts they use for spying and espionage. But many of us, such as myself and Richard, use it to help locate missing people, both alive and those who have been passed, whose lives have been taken from them, to find missing animals. And we'll be talking to Richard about that. And if you feel that perhaps you'd like to be involved in mediumship in some shape or form, but don't feel that you're cut out to do the type of work that I'm doing, perhaps remote viewing is a way forward for you. It's all to do with energy. Richard doesn't connect with the spirit world to do his remote viewing. He just uses the field and takes the information from the field. I, on the other hand, ask the spirit world to guide me to where I need to be. So we're going to be looking at remote viewing. I've also got a channeled message that I'm going to be reading. Once again, I don't know who the person is that's given me this information, but I do trust my gatekeeper, Joan, to know that this person giving me this information is extremely benevolent and of a very high vibration. So I look forward to sharing what he or she said. And finally, we're going to look at the trailer from a fabulous documentary called Calling Earth. And this is to do with electronic voice phenomena. And more now, as the veil that separates the two worlds comes crashing down, we're able to communicate with our brothers and sisters in the spirit world through simple recording equipment, through the use of computers. There are things called spirit boxes. I don't think you need to invest any money in any of this stuff. And perhaps, again, if you don't think you're cut out with mediumship but like to be involved in this, you don't need any skill whatsoever, just intention and patience. And perhaps this is your field. So anyway, look, before we begin today's show, I'd like to tell you about what's going on in and around my world. We're going to be looking at, over the last week, I've been involved in the Global Consciousness Summit. This is a summit that's absolutely free of charge for you to look at for the speakers on the day. That can be found at www.globalconsciousnesssummit.com. It's free to register and it's free to view the speakers. Now let me tell you about the speakers that are up and coming tomorrow. Well, I tell you what, it's the end day, and so we have at 9 a.m. Kim Richardson, at 10 a.m. Dawn Silver, at 11 a.m. Dr. Susan Rossi, and at 12 p.m. my partner in crime, along with Teresa Michelle, is Marla Goldberg. She is the brains actually behind the Global Consciousness Summit, and I'm thrilled to be part of the original team here that got this up and running. So let me tell you about what's going on here tomorrow. As I mentioned, at 9 a.m. EST, Kim Richardson will be talking about the power of kindness. She's a personal chef, mind, body, spirit practitioner, author and publisher, teaching others how to live a high vibrational place of peace, love And through sharing her own personal experiences, she empowers individuals to transform their lives. She helps individuals to heal, forgive, and expand without judgment. Her passion is helping people discover their true gifts and how to use them in the world. Kim teaches unconditional love as she hopes it will have a ripple effect in the world, and I'm absolutely sure it will. At 10 a.m. EST, and I think that's 4 p.m. in Central Europe. But 10 a.m. EST, Dawn Silver, we're talking about crystal healing. Dr. Silver is a napropath, an astrologer, a herbalist, a crystal healer and aromatherapist. She has lectured nationally, internationally on the healing through crystals, astrology, holistic nutrition and consciousness at various conferences. Her approach to healing bridges the ancient worlds of wisdom to the modern times, the tangible worlds of science to the infinite spiritual worlds of ancient texts. And at 11 a.m, we've got Dr. Susan Rossi talking about enlightenment. Now, Dr. Susan Rossi's multidimensional healing work emerged as the quickening, accelerated conscious evolution, a divinely inspired system of gentle and powerful inner transformation for the new millennium. Additionally, inspired by her own healing journey, Dr. Rossi authors a series of books written to transmute the shadows of sexuality called Divine Designs for Sex. And the first edition will be launched in 2021, by the way. But Dr. Rossi's work unifies the wisdom teachings that touch the four corners of our great planet, spanning thousands of years to arrive here refreshed for the use of the new millennium. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, that is the talk at 11 a.m. EST. And finally, at 12 p.m. EST, our very own Marla Goldberg will be talking about self-love. Marla is an energy healer, intuitive speaker, a teacher, and an international best-selling author and host of Guided Spirit Conversations podcast. Her mission and purpose in life is to inspire, motivate, and educate her clients and all that she connects with through her book and podcast, through the use of her tools and techniques to help them enhance or shift life circumstances. During her 3 years of attendance at Inner Focus Mystery School, she was trained in 14 different healing techniques. Following her graduation of Inner Focus, she continued her education by learning additional techniques, and now Marla is up to date with about 20 different healing techniques. So there you are. This is what's on tomorrow. It's the final day. Please visit www.globalconsciousnesssummit.com, and there you can watch all the stuff for free. So anyway, let's get on with the show. Now, we're going to be looking in this first part at the mechanics of mediumship, and in this case we're going to be looking at preparing the room for the reading, preparing the client for the reading, and making sure that you yourself are physically ready for the reading. But the first thing I always tell clients now when they come for the reading is to have a checklist. And what is the checklist? I encourage them to go through old photographs all the time. Look at those, going back even to the old black and white ones. And you know, you come across a picture of a family party and then you see grandma there. And grandma, you say, oh, who's that lady with grandma? Oh, that was her friend Lucy or whoever. Oh yeah, and where was the part? Oh, that was at our old house in Highgate, and so on and so forth. And you start bringing back all these memories. It's so important because when we do the reading, there is so much information, bang, 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 going, that quite often, if the person is not really aware of all this information, you might start getting, no, I can't understand that, no, I can't take that. But if they go back and have a look at pictures and look at family members, even old school photographs, perhaps you might see a picture of dad there with his dog, which passed away when he was a baby. Oh, I remember that dog, because that dog may come through, and that dog may be the link that will bring dad through. So it's really important to get the client to do this checklist, to go back and look all the photographs, the names, check on anniversaries, dates, places they lived, work, and so on and so forth. They can't do everything, but to do as much as you can, because this will make for a much better reading for them, and it will be a better link for you as you try to bring in all the people from their family and their friends. So after the checklist, what happens next? I found it so important to, when the person comes, to make sure, is the reading room, is it user friendly? When the person turns up, do they walk in the room and go, this is nice? Or do they walk in the room and do they look at clutter everywhere? Because to have a lot of clutter around does not make for a good reading. Believe me, this I know, because it distracts them from the reading, and your job is also to keep the person focused. After all, they've come to you for a reading. So by having these distractions of a cluttered room, it doesn't help. It doesn't make good for the reading. The lighting should be comfortable as well. So all this information is coming fast and furious, so we must make them comfortable. They may also be quite nervous, and it's important for them to be relaxed. So does the room have a nice aroma, or is it stale? Now, I'm not advocating scented candles because many people might be allergic or don't like scented candles. But does the room have an air of freshness about it? Is it sufficiently warm for the person? Is the chair that they're sitting in nice and comfortable? Can they relax in it? You see, you've got to get the person settled in order to get the best reading. And as a medium, are you dressed representative of the job in hand? Let me give you some examples of this. For example, here we are, we've got it all up here. So, medium 1 walks into the room with his client. Does the medium have a nervous energy? If the medium's got this nervous energy, this doesn't make for good reading. It's not inspiring the person. So we need to make sure that the energy isn't nervous. What about the tone of voice? Is the tone of voice deflecting? Is it not being what it should be for a medium? After all, you're connecting with the spirit world. So an average tone, monolithic voice with no emotion is again another distraction, and it's not really inspiring. No eye contact. I've seen this so many times, people avoiding eye contact. I actually believe, as particularly when doing a mediumship reading, that there should be eye contact. It gives a feeling of warmness. Now, I'm not saying staring at the person, but when you make eye contact, it really encourages the person to know that you're not hiding anything by looking away all the time or looking down all the time. So it's nice to have that communication. So if there's no eye contact, this could be a little bit of a problem. Poor stature. Well, let's have a look at poor stature. Unless you've got a medical condition, are your shoulders humped over? Do you look like you're ready to do this job? Because as a medium, you need to be more than just walking in like this and not being so buoyant. You see, we're trying to set an impression, and we're trying to inspire confidence in the person that's coming for the reading. So how do we inspire confidence in the person that's coming for a reading? Well, let's just have a look at this. Let's have a look at medium 2. So medium 2 walks in the room with the client. So medium 2 is calm and focused. This has to be a better approach straight away from being nervous. So it is important, and it inspires the person coming in not to be nervous if you are calm and you are focused and not too overbearing. And what about a handshake? It's nice to have a handshake and welcome someone in, but is the handshake one of these weak, floppy, wet ones, or is it a nice, firm? Maybe strong is a little bit too harsh a word, but certainly it should be done with meaning, and a wet handshake doesn't do anything. It's not inspiring at all. All these little things can make a difference in the reading. What about the voice? Do you have a strong voice? It's important to have a strong voice and to be with a little bit of authority, assertive to a certain degree, not overbearing. But again, this is inspiring. And this applies actually for any work that you're involved in. If you walk into any environment as a plumber, as a builder, and you're not calm and focused, and you shake the client's hand with a very weak and wet handshake, and you've got this very woolly voice, it's not very inspiring. It's also important to be a little bit jovial, to keep the vibration high. When I do evenings of clairvoyance, I always add a little bit of humour into it to keep the vibration high, because when you do an evening of clairvoyance in front of people, believe it or not, they're more nervous than you. So this vibration that needs to be lifted can done for a little bit of being jovial and a little bit of laughter. And what about enthusiasm and good expressions? This is also important when you bring someone in. You know, it's like this is their reading and you want the best for them. Even though you may have done 3 or 4 today and maybe 20 that week, each experience is unique, and the person, the sitter, needs to feel that you're enthusiastic and expressive and you're not just going through the motions. And of course, good posture will say a lot about this. If you sit the way I'm sitting, with your back straight and you're again giving an impression that you're focused. Very important to do this. Well, what about there we are. What about clean trousers? Well, look, I've got no objection to jeans. I think jeans are quite nice, but the important thing is, are you representative of the job in hand? You don't want to go wearing an old t-shirt, old pair of work jeans. This is not very supportive of the work that you're trying to do. It's also, one can argue, a little bit disrespectful to the spirit world as well. But jeans are fine, long as they're clean, long as they're nice, and a good quality t-shirt was fine. But as you can see, I've got a shirt on, and you wear a nice pair of trousers, nice clean shoes. I know some of you may think this is a little bit over the top, but in my experience, we're trying to relax the client, we're trying to get them on our side, we're trying to get them focused, and we're trying to make them not nervous. So of course, a nice shirt or a nice jumper is also required. So these are some of the things that we need to do in order to make the reading go well. And once you've got the client relaxed, the next stage is a little bit of small talk. You want to get to know the person, not to get information out of them. If you're doing that, then you don't deserve the title of evidential medium. But what you're trying to do is hear their voice, and for them to hear your voice, and get them familiar with your voice. Not only that, the spirit world would like to hear the voice, as it's a 3-way conversation, and it's like a radio antenna that goes up, and they like to hear it. So just a little bit of small talk can do a lot for the reading, but no fishing. If you go on a fishing expedition, then you're in trouble, okay? Because you shouldn't have that title of a medium, evidential medium. So these are the things that you should take on board. If you're going to a reading, if you're having a reading with an evidential medium as opposed to a psychic, then please do take the opportunity to have the best reading that you can with the medium by going back, looking at all these old photographs, looking at all the people that you'd forgotten about, recognizing their names, recognizing their position in the family. Are they friends of the family, friends of grandmums, friends of granddad? You know, we had a reading the other day, and we brought through this person, and fortunately the person I was reading for actually was in our spirit communication circle, and they flashed up Capstan cigarettes. These are very old cigarettes going back right to the 40s. I don't think they make them anymore, but bang, up it come, Capstan cigarettes. And she could take it. Why? Because she knew that person smoked Capstan cigarettes. Had she not known that, it'd fallen on deaf ears. So it's important that if you go for a reading, please do as much homework as you can to attract the best possible reading that is available to you. It does help the medium, and you know, it's not that you should be giving the medium any information, but as I said, the medium is going to come through, and I've got so and so here, I've got Lucy here, and can you understand a black dog? You wouldn't remember the black dog if the black dog passed when your father when you was a little baby, and the dog was getting on in years. You probably don't remember it, but if you see a photograph of it and the medium brings through a black dog, then you'll know. And by getting all this information in and being able to accept the information, then this strengthens the link. There's also another point, and I brought this up. Go back, look at old school photographs, because it could be that the teacher who you forgot about in that photograph could be the link that helps bring mum or dad through. And mum or dad might not be able to come through yet because you haven't got a strong enough link. But for whatever reason, the vibration between you and the school teacher is strong and can bridge that gap between you and your father. So again, don't dismiss who comes through, even though you would like to hear from mum or dad, and poor old school teacher comes through. It might be a little bit disappointing for you, but that can be the missing link. So, okay, so next week, I think we've got 2 more sections left in the book. Proof of Survival, Evidential Guide to Mediumship. And next week we will be talking about the reading, the process of mediumship itself, the process of delivering a reading. So that's the first part of the show. Now, I spoke earlier in the introduction about remote viewing. Remote viewing is a technique, a technology of looking into the field, because all the information that was, is and will be is in the field. And what we do is we set a target. Somebody sets a target for us to find. Now, it can either be controlled, it can be an esoteric, it can be many, many different things. Myself and Richard, who you're going to hear from very soon, we look usually for missing people or missing cats. Our most recent one actually was a helicopter crash, and we're looking in to find exactly what caused the crash. But anyway, look, let me pass you over to Richard, hear what he has to say, and if there's anything to add to it, I will add to it after.
What I learned in this time as a child was that what I perceive with my senses, you know, the typical 5 senses, is not everything. There's much more to be sensed. For me, it was normal. I just by the time not used it anymore.
Right.
And Today I'm over 50, and let's say a year ago, I was just rethinking situations in my youth and tried to compare this with the Richard of today. So I tried to compare the young Richard of, let's say, 5 years age, and the one now. And there are some differences, I hope. But most important for me is there still a sense into a reality that is not the common reality? And I learned about remote viewing, and I learned about the consciousness, and I saw a lot of interviews of others, people of good names, and I realized it's still there, it's still working.
Right.
I've just to meditate, to concentrate, to separate myself from the existing reality, and then the information just drops in.
Right.
The only difficult thing is to control this. What remote viewers are doing is setting an intention of wanting to know something, but not bringing your own, what people say, the monkey mind, right, into this solution. And this is the most tricky part, I would say. You remember it for yourself. I can remember a lot of discussions where we were both laughing about ourselves.
Yeah.
Because anything we do not know, what our mind is not instantly recognizing, which means it doesn't fit. The mind is not comfortable with this and tries to work around it. Right. And tries to come up with ideas, solutions, interpretations, and you have to separate yourself from this. And this is the most tricky part.
Right. Because the work that, let's say, we do with remote viewing is really quite emotional stuff. We're not looking usually at esoteric stuff. We're looking at missing people, humans and with emotions. Do you find that that gets in the way, or can you actually switch that off? Because as a medium, when I'm giving a reading, if I see the person in front of me that's really quite emotional and upset, it sounds harsh, but I have to detach myself from that. Otherwise, I lose the link. I get this earthly emotion. So do you consciously say, right, I am not going to make any emotional attachment to the outcome of this. I'm just going to view it and take it for what it is?
I mean, I understand the Americans and their structured RV, what they call, developed by CIA and so forth. The sense, let's put it that way. There's a paper coming out this year from Stanford. It's from Dr. Gary Nolan, and he's hypothesizing on the cartea putamen. It's a part of our brain which is most probably the antenna for transceiving and receiving information.
Right.
The thing is, though, this complex of brain structures is also involved in emotional feelings. So what they recognized on their MRI scans, brain scans during meditation and so forth, they recognized that any emotional experience is very much reflected in this area, the cartea putamen, which is directly between your ears, you could say, directly in the center of your brain. This means that this part is in charge of emotions, but also emotions can activate this part. You can activate this antenna. It's like putting more energy into a radio station.
Okay.
So you can't do it like the Americans do on this SRV philosophy or protocol, they call it, without any emotion. But I think it's more easy to attach to a case if you have an emotional attachment to it.
Right.
The emotional attachment comes from a picture, for example.
Yeah.
If you see a person, you get a lot of information, not just the two-dimensional image, but you are learned and trained to read a person's image just because we did it since our lifetime. And this attaches someone to this person.
Yeah.
And if there's a case behind, a question behind, that means that you make this case yours.
Right.
It attaches to you.
Yeah.
And by this attachment, it produces more significant outcomes, in my opinion, than the total standardized, unemotional attachment, like the SRV people in America do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think at this stage it might be an idea to explain what the procedure is, that you're given a set of coordinates of a target, and we don't know the target, what the target is. But if you want to take it up from there, because the person who has written those coordinates, it's better for them to meditate, focus on the subject, and that energy is hooked into the coordinates. So if you could take that up from the beginning, let's talk about the procedure from beginning to end. That would be a good idea. And then hopefully you might be able to recruit some new members. So, yeah.
So my first point is remote viewing is not something special in certain people. It's like playing music. Everyone can play music. Some do better, some not so good.
Yeah.
But anyway, everyone can make music. So anyone can remote view because the antenna for transceiving and receiving information is still there.
Mm.
The question is how do you work with it? How do you use it personally as a human being? The thing is, there's information in people call it the quantum field, the ether. There are 1,000 names for it because we're just not convinced on any subject. It's just, everyone names it differently, but let's call it the field for you, for simpleness. While you concentrate and meditate, you get this information automatically in your brain. You receive it. It's just turn on the radio and you can't block a radio signal from coming in. It's just there. Yeah. The thing is, this is just hypothesis. There are people talking about the kaleidoscopic or how do you call this? Where every information is in every little bit.
Holographic.
Holographic, thank you. Holographic, yeah. It has to be some kind of holographic because holographic means that it is not bound to our 3D environment. It is non-local and non-temporal. Yeah. So I think that this field is of a higher dimension and our antennas can just reach into this higher dimension. Mm. It's not esoteric. It's just pure physics, I would say. So you can get information from this field, let's say. Mm-hmm. But this is holographic, which means you have to filter by yourself. So how do you filter? Because I want to meditate and I get a kaleidoscopic information, so millions of images are received. Yeah. And this is too much. So how do you slice that or filter that and just to get the ones that you're interested in? And this comes, what the Stanford and CIA did develop by intention focusing. So as a remote viewer, you make a meditation, but before you go into a meditation, you start with a strong intention setting in yourself. That means that you can control yourself in a way that you say, I really want to know a particular case, about a particular case. And the stronger you set your own intention for knowing this, the better the filter works on this holographic information that comes in. And suddenly only those images or information is filtered out, and suddenly only the filtered out information is coming to you. Right. And you recognize it, you see it, you hear it, you feel it, you can... You see colors, you hear tones, you even feel emotions of persons, of entities that are involved. Right. And one of the most critical, coming back to your question, one of the most critical part is either I sit by myself and have my own target,
Yeah.
knowing about it, having a picture on the table, for example, which is not blind, because I'm not blind, I see it, I can attach myself to, I can emotionally attach myself to. But the Americans do it in this anonymous way, let's say.
Yeah.
They write down, for a particular case, they write down, they call it a coordinate, it's just some ciphers. Most of the time they use 8 ciphers. And then they hand it over to a remote viewer. And the remote viewer takes the 8 ciphers, then goes into meditation, and then the process should work that with his intention for knowing what's behind the cipher,
Right. Yeah.
the information is filtered backwards. From my point of view, this only works if this so-called coordinate is really attached with the case you were looking for.
Right.
I think this is the most crucial part in it, and I think I get the belief that most of the remote viewing actions that are taken by people are not that positive or not that with a good outcome, or disappoint the questioner, because there's no real good attachment. So let's make it simple. A remote viewer should have someone, like, let's call him a handler, someone who handles a remote viewer. So the handler gives a case to the remote viewer by only telling a number.
Yeah.
So the remote viewer picks up the number, which is written on a piece of paper, then goes into meditation and tries to filter due to this number. But in case that the handler did not connect the case, the question, with this cipher number, with this abstract number, the remote viewer is not able to pick up the information, because the information has to be set into this field so that the remote viewer is picking that filter up.
Right.
Otherwise, it would be just magic, and there's no magic involved here. There's no esoteric, no magic involved here. So if there is a good handler, I give you an example, and I know you already know about those people. For example, the Farsight Institute, which are extremely good remote viewers in play. Their handler is Courtney Brown. Courtney Brown is trained by the CIA and SRI, and he's a very capable remote viewer by himself, and he knows how to set those coordinates. So in one interview I heard him saying, the most important part of his is to meditate and to bring a certain number that he writes down. It's just a random number, but he connects, in his meditation, he connects that number with the question he wants to be answered.
Right.
If he does it well, another remote viewer on the other side of the planet, just knowing about this number, can now ask, under citation, can ask the field for the real filtered information based on that cipher, based on what the handler connected with.
Right. Yeah.
So that's in part very, very easy to say. It's tricky to do.
Yeah. I mean, for example, if I were to have a picture and I just write down a set of coordinates and say, there you are, that's the coordinates, it wouldn't be effective, because I haven't programmed with real intention the picture into those coordinates.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there we are. That was a little explanation on remote viewing. We all have our own techniques. It's a very, very rewarding piece of work to do. And you can go online and do some practicing. There's a few websites there, and what they do is give a set of coordinates, and you take those coordinates and you would focus your attention on what is behind those coordinates, and then you can press the button and see how accurate we are. One of the things about remote viewing is, and the one of the biggest pitfalls that people make, is trying to give too much detail and trying to name shapes. So to begin with, rather than let's say describe a car, you might want to say, well, I see an object, there's two circular things to it, it seems to be connected by some sort of oblong shape with a round roof. Or you could say, instead of you viewing a ladder, you could say, well, what I'm seeing is two long angle pieces of something. They could be wood, they could be metal, but they're two long pieces, and I see some vertical lines going across. This is a good way to start, not to start trying to define things as a car, as a ladder, as a boat, and things like this, because this is where you can start to become disappointed in yourself. And one last little bit of heads up there, when you do remote viewing, if you do go to some of these sites where you can do some remote viewing, you might find you get the first 2 or 3 pretty accurate, and after that you find that you're not so accurate. With this is you being a little bit cheeky, actually getting a little bit carried away with yourself. So just be aware that this is not a perfect science, okay? We're really trying to connect with something that's out there in the field. So be patient with yourself when you do this. So look, I'd like to move on. Before we do the EVP, I'll show you some information about electronic voice phenomena. I've got this bit of channeling here that I want to read out to you. Again, it comes from somebody I don't know. I know this is somebody very high up in the spirit world. I do know my gatekeeper Joan very well, and I called her she very loosely, will only allow a benevolent life form to channel this information. So here goes. So it says, I would like to talk to you today about your personal intuition and psychic abilities. Each and every one of you is born with the gift of communication, without voice or speech. Speech, or the vibration of voice, has many positives, and while you should continue with your endeavours to communicate in the customary manner, we would like to see you raise your vibration to communicate more through intuition and telepathy. We encourage this wholly, not just because mankind has learned to be deceitful through words, and therefore he or she not living in the true vibration or the authentic self. When we look at what is loosely termed the animal kingdom, we often pay witness to a reality void of words. When these beautiful souls do speak, it is with intention and purpose to warn or ward off, or simply songs of joy. They are actually forever in the present, and how much happier they all seem to be. And may I say, extremely adaptable, as they clearly can live in humanity's reality. And the question is, can man live in the reality of the animal kingdom? And for the overwhelming majority of people, the answer would surely be no. I mention all of this in the hope to spark a little fire, to inspire you, that you will comprehend the benefit of silence. When you remain silent and still, you offer us the opportunity to establish communication with you. You, on the other hand, also offer yourself the opportunity to realise that words you speak in most cases are most likely not a true reflection of your authentic self. There are social conditionings, and as a consequence, you have learned to constantly reposition yourself according to the situation at hand. In other words, through voice, mankind has learned to deceive himself and by default the person they are addressing. When you are in silence for a short period of time, you begin to connect with the higher self. When you remain silent for longer periods of time, say 2 hours a day, you will notice a shift in your intuition. We recommend that you practice silence at the most opportunistic hour of 3 a.m. Here Mother Earth is at its most still and is readily available to give up some of her secrets to you. Of course, to be still and silent is not to meditate. Of course, so how to be silent? It is for you to continually bring your mind back to the 0 point of attention. And so when you find you have a thought, simply acknowledge and cancel it by simply blanking your mind. Your thoughts will wander approximately every 2 to 3 seconds initially, but with the presence of local time, that is your time available on the earth plane, you will step by step learn to still and silent your mind for longer periods, perhaps up to 10 seconds before noise occurs. Perhaps. So what you may ask is the benefit for you. That would actually be the wrong question and would indicate that you're not ready for this new opportunity that is being presented to you before your very eyes. The question should be, how best can I serve all that is and will be with this new language of silence? As we enter a new age, and this channel has voiced this expression for us many times, those who lift their heads up from their gadgets are going to be the new pioneers of the forthcoming golden age. No longer will speech be the predominant application, but telepathy will be restored and will be used by the masters for communication of pure thought energy to serve the whole of life on the planet for peace, abundance, and prosperity for all. For the confines of this language do not support anything other than truth. Already many of you are in the early stages of this discovery, as you begin to find comfort in your own solitude and being around nature and wildlife. This, my brothers and sisters, is an indicator that you are ready to begin your journey. But many of you will not complete the journey and will not become the enlightened ones of the golden age. However, by being conscious, you may find a different path to serve the greater good. One of the most beautiful experiences that you can achieve learning to tune into silence is the gift of communicating with other life forms, not just galactic brothers and sisters, though this will become most likely should you set the intention. But I refer to nature. You will be able to hear nature speak to you and become one with nature. For Mother Earth hears your every thought with her own consciousness, which is much closer to what you would call clairsentience or pure feeling. And of course, without any doubt, your new perspective will enable you to be very effective in communicating with the animal kingdom. The planet's vibrational curve with all its inhabitants is raising by the moment. There is a surgence in the Schumann resonance and of light also. This will continue for the foreseeable future. It is in this vibration that everything becomes possible, or in the least begins the process of all possibility. We mentioned beforehand that the veil that separates the two worlds is getting thinner. Many of you will begin to see us, hear us, and feel us with more clarity. Your prayers are heard and are being answered. After all, do you not pray in silence, in the still hours of the night before bed, solitary but connected? It is only awareness, therefore, that was needed to be brought to your attention, that many of you have been through the process of stillness for many years. Now, after your prayers, whilst you're in that moment of gratitude and solitude, offer yourself some silence to hear our whisper. Good night, brothers and sisters. So that was the channeled message. Hopefully, one day we'll find out who this is from. So there you are. It's really positive. There's a lot to be thankful for, a lot not to be frightened for at this moment in time. So let's move on to the last section of the show, and we're going to look at electronic voice phenomena. And again, if you like the idea of mediumship, but you're not so sure that you want to do the type of work I do, then you can get involved in electronic voice phenomena. I'll tell you more about this after we see this trailer from the documentary Calling Earth.
I think the fact that we survive bodily death is a scientific fact. It's nothing to do with religion.
One day in the summer of 2002, Martha Copeland of Lawrenceville, Georgia, played back a sound recording she'd made earlier that day and heard the voice of her daughter Kathy disciplining her dog. That wouldn't have been so unusual, except that 6 months earlier, Kathy had died in an auto accident.
One evening, to my great surprise, with some equipment I was developing at the time, I heard a voice. I was really startled.
After the second or third test, I immediately got voices saying, "We are the dead, we are alive, we are able to think and to speak."
A brief definition of the electronic voice phenomenon, or EVP as we call it, would be the existence of voices of unknown origin which appear in tape recordings particularly, but could also be recorded in other ways.
Once earthly change.
It was the voice of my late father. And he addressed me with my nickname he used when I was a little boy.
Here was this voice that I recognized immediately as my mother.
Bob, just missing you, pal. I know, great. Happy birthday. Love you. Happy New Year.
The voice then calls the experimenter's name, Konstantin Raudive.
This is Konstantin Raudive speaking. I'm as fine as a dead one can be.
The experimenter states that in his opinion, man cannot grasp the events after death with his intellect. A voice replies in German, kann. He can.
If somebody came up to me in the street and said, "There's nothing paranormal about EVP," I would say, well, I believe in experimental evidence. I've done at least 20 years and hundreds of experiments, and I know that it is a paranormal effect. Now, how many experiments have you done?
When the phenomena expanded into pictures, faxes, computer messages, actual phone calls, another term had to be coined, and that became instrumental transcommunication, or ITC, which basically means communication through instruments.
International conferences held in the United States and Europe have drawn ITC experimenters, scientists, engineers, psychologists, and medical doctors from around the world who share their experiences, present the results of their research work, and discuss methods for better understanding the nature and meaning of ITC.
Whoa!
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, this is very clear.
Oh, check that out. That's totally him. Oh my God.
It's objective evidence. So It has changed our lives completely.
Science appears to preclude the possibility of an afterlife, but science evolves and there's no knowing what possibilities may be acceptable to a future science.
Maybe it's a superstition, maybe it really happens. The only way to find out is to study the phenomenon and find out whether it happens or not.
We should be devoting enormous social resources to this question, not leaving it up to a matter of belief.
So there you are. That was a little excerpt from the documentary Calling Earth. So this is a great documentary. So it's about an hour long. So sit down, pour yourself a glass of wine, put your feet up and relax and enjoy this. And here you will be able to witness firsthand that we do indeed survive the earthly body. So I'm going to try and catch up with the director or the producer of this show and see if we can have him on board and talk about the documentary in much more detail. But in the meantime, I think it's on Vimeo. Just go to Vimeo and put in Calling Earth documentary. Well, look, that's about it for today. I want to say to you all, don't forget, tomorrow before I leave you all, there's the Global Consciousness Summit. And these are going to be the guests on tomorrow. Kim Richardson at 9 a.m, 10 a.m, Dawn Silver, 11 a.m, Dr. Susan Rossi, and at 12 p.m, our very own Marla Goldberg. And this is the Global Consciousness Summit. And you can find us at www.globalconsciousnesssummit.com. And all those shows are free tomorrow for 24 hours. Register for free and just watch the shows and enjoy. In the meantime, this is Mike Cavalli on the Mediumship Show saying bye-bye for now, and I shall see you next week.